You're listening to Stories to Create with your host, Cornell Bunting. Author, motivational speaker, and founder of ES Each Episode. Cornell sits down with inspiring voices to uncover the stories that shape who we are and who we're becoming. Get ready to listen, learn, and be inspired. The show starts now.
Yes. Welcome to another episode of Stories to Create podcast right here at EOS Club. I'm your host, Cornell Bunting. I'm excited today because, listen, you guys are in for a treat. You will be entertained today. You never know. I might just put her on the spot today. But today,
it will be entertaining.
You'll visualize, and this is just amazing. I just want you guys to know we have Dr. Empress Rose in the house today. She's not only a poet, she's a writer. Her title is humongous, people. When I tell you she's making some major moves, traveling all over the world to tell her story. And if you guys have not heard this one piece yet, it's called Ghost of Marcus Garvey, I think. And then she have another one called Negritude. Ooh, listen. She is going to break it down for you guys, and I got to tell you, some say the names they try to silent. Negritude. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. We're going to touch on that. So without further ado, help me welcome Dr. Empress Rose.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yay! Big cheers. We are so excited to have you on the show today. Big shout outs to EOS sponsors. And of course, we love you guys for supporting the organization. Cornell Bunting LLC. Paris Capital. Appreciate you guys. It's a beautiful thing. Listen, we're going to dive into the show right now. And what I want you to do, Doc, take our listeners back to the early years. Where were you born? Where you grew up?
Yes, so I was born, so shout out to all the listeners, actually, and everyone who is tuning in. I appreciate being here as well with Mr. Cornell Bunting. I tell you, I heard so much about him on this show that I said, I definitely have to be here. So I grew up in St. Mary, Jamaica.
Okay.
I attended Marymount High School. I moved to Spanish Town and Kingston, and I started attending St. Joseph High School.
Okay.
Yeah, but my earlier years in St. Mary, I went to Goshen Primary. And
Goshen? Where's Goshen at? Where in St. Mary?
It's close between Gale and Jeffertown. So that's Barry G,
Barry G, yes.
Barry G mom, yes, she was my mentor. Because she realized from a very young age I wanted to do a lot of things, and I was good at doing all those things. So she actually, mentored me how to ensure that I can get those things done and, being able to actually monetize my time and make sure I'm doing the things correctly. So, yeah, I ran track, and that was one of the first things she realized that I was good. She helped me. So I ran everything and I won everything.
Wow. So you did track in school?
Yes, I did.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
and when I came to the U.S., I actually did track too as well.
Oh, you did track here in America?
I did track. I was training for the Olympics, which was my goal. And I got injured in 2004. And that injury sidelined me where I could not walk for 2 years.
Ooh. And
then after coming back, I was told that I couldn't run anymore because of, the injury and everything else. So I stopped running track, but I was already coaching athletes for the Olympics and national championships. So I continued on that, and I still do today. I write the programs for various athletes across the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So transitioning from Jamaica to America, how old were you?
I was about 17. Yeah, going on 8.
Now,
I am December born, so, you know,
Okay.
it is.
This is beautiful. So for a lot of people, because, Jamaica have this language that a lot of people still trying to understand it.
Yeah.
And of course, you coming here because you knew the patois, yes?
Yes.
And then coming to America with all these different slangs, was there any culture shock? What was that like?
Well, what happened is that both my parents are medical doctors. And
Okay.
with my dad, I traveled extensively with him. So he
Okay.
would work, very hard worker, and then he would probably be off for like 2 months at a time. And then I would travel with him. So I was already traveling various places, going to different countries. And being at such a very young age, I just picked up the languages. So I actually speak 9 languages.
Wow.
Yeah, I speak 9 languages, which actually helps because sometimes
Yeah.
people are talking about you and they don't know you understand what they're saying.
Right,
It's very handy. Yeah. So I already in high school, in Marymount High School, you had to do languages. So I had already done French and Spanish as well. And then my mom was, based in the Caribbean. So she would do more of the Caribbean islands and my dad would do more of Africa. So my mom was actually extensive. She worked in Curacao, and in Curacao they speak Papiamento. So again, being very young, I catch on to the languages as well.
So stick a pin for a minute here. So you said your dad did the Africa stuff. So you know any African language?
Yes, a little Pidgin English, Twi, which is spoken in Ghana, and then I taught myself a few artists that I write for there as well, and I wanted to, just know the language and get it done right. So yes,
Amazing.
and there are a few others that I understand. I don't speak it, but I know what they're saying.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. Now,
and not to cut you, but in terms of like the culture shock you were asking,
yeah,
I wasn't so much the language. It was more the racism. Like when I realized that racism still existed, I was floored. I thought that it was done with.
It was done away with.
Yeah. But when I experienced racism in Boston, Massachusetts, which is where I'm at, I was floored. I was like, wow, I want to go home. I started crying out. My mom was like, no, there are opportunities there. You have to learn to work through it. So, yeah.
That's good. That is good. So you did college here.
Yeah. Yes. Quite schools as well before I actually, found my way in what I wanted to do as well.
So, because you're like this ultimate entrepreneur, some would say, that's doing like all these different things. You're very multifaceted.
Very multifaceted. From a very young age, I knew what I wanted to do.
Yes.
And you name it, I've done it. So at a very young age, myself and my brothers and sisters, our parents, it was the ultimate thing to ask, like, what do you guys want to do and all of that. And all my brothers and sisters would say they want to be a doctor. And then when it came to me, I would be like, I want to run track. I want to do music. I want to have my own hairdressing shop. And I just kept on going down. My parents were like, you can't do all of that. I said, yeah. I can. And so I would get punishment, and my punishment was to wash the dishes. So, I was washing dishes all through primary school and high school. Was my punishment, but I wouldn't change. That's what I wanted to do. So, interestingly, about 4 years ago, I was driving my mom, and she started laughing in the car. And I was like, what's so funny?
Yeah.
She said, you remember when you used to tell us what you wanted to do? And we said, no, you couldn't do that. And you just kept on saying that's what you want to do. She said, you know what's funny? Yeah. You're the only child that did what you said you wanted to do.
Wow. Amazing.
So none of my brothers and sisters end up going on that path, but I did that and some more. So, yeah.
Good for you and being persistent. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Now, you got into poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I've been doing poetry since I can remember myself.
Wow.
It's actually the road to songwriting. And I've written songs for various artists across the world and in different languages. Last year, this time, I had 2 tracks in Zimbabwe that were #1. I have artists that have made it to their award show and are stand out within their countries as well. But poetry was on the way to songwriting. And I think I started at a very young age because it was another way for me to express myself. One of my first poems that I wrote was based on color and colorism, because I'm the darkest of my parents. And so my brother and sisters usually call me blackface. And so that was my first poem, it's like I didn't know how to respond. And over time it is like, it didn't bother me anymore. I'm like, okay, and what? So over time it didn't bother me anymore, but I learned to cope through poetry.
Into like a place like that where you got in so deep, who would you say inspired you though to wanted to go to that direction of the poetry world?
One of my influences is Miss Lou. I really liked the curve she took to doing it as well. And it's not just about, I tell other persons as well in music, like you can ask someone who their influences are and you do reggae and persons will be like, well, I'm Mariah Carey, and they'll say, how? Because it's reggae. So when we talk about poetry, It's kind of similar in that sense, because it's not all poets that really, got my ear to or influenced me to do poetry. Miss Lou, yes.
Right.
But in terms of music and how you tell your story. And I think one of those persons is Lucky Dubé. When you listen to a Lucky Dubé track, he is telling a story. When you listen to Bob Marley, he's telling a story. When you listen to Peter Tosh, Dennis Brown, which are my favorites, they tell a story. So I would say it's not just in poetry, but I definitely, see what I do as an extension of Miss Lou.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I'm sure you've been getting this because I think a lot of Jamaicans are very proud of what Marcus Garvey came to America and did.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of people that's not fully informed on, all of what was unfolding, why Marcus Garvey was seen as a threat, and all the different things that happened to bring down even the Black Star Line and all these different things. You did a piece around Marcus Garvey. What were you hoping to accomplish when you did that?
Well, firstly, I must say that I think that Marcus Garvey is not really celebrated as much as he should be celebrated.
Right.
And for persons who have never migrated to another country, they have no idea what he was going through when he did what he did and what he saw in our people that sometimes our own people do not see themselves. Because let's face it, everybody cannot be leaders.
Right.
Some people are actually followers. And it's ensuring that whoever you're following is actually, if your ultimate goal is to be better at what you do or be better in society, that you're actually not following a sheep, but actually following someone who can actually, take you on a higher spectrum. Now, I really think Marcus Garvey was not given enough credit by Jamaicans alone. That in its sense, not to mention the U.S. as well. One of the reasons why I think it was important for me to put him within this context as well, because I've been in the U.S., I've done so many things, I've accomplished so much, but as well, it's also letting others know what you do. But what I've recognized is that our own people will not recognize what we do until somebody else does. And then when you're at the top, they said, oh, I've seen her and I know her and I know what she brought and I know what she has done. And I see Marcus Garvey going through the same thing, because being in a foreign country and you're also going to be second person in that country. And,
Yes.
just to know that you can come and accomplish so much and have so many persons standing behind the movement is absolutely incredible. Yeah, so when I look at his works and things, I thought that, it's important that I include him. The deciding to do the album, I wanted to focus on, different historical persons across the world, but let it more stick towards what I'm experiencing right now in the U.S., as well. And Nina Simone said something about your art, like as an artist, it's an extension. You move with the times. There are persons that will not put an album together like I did because they tell themselves they not want to ruffle any feathers. But as an artist, you have a commitment to your audience and what you're giving them. So it's only right that Marcus Garvey is part of the U.S. history as well, to be included. Yeah.
I love that. And, Negritude go deep, so we won't touch on that yet. We'll touch on that in a minute here.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that is now hearing you and wanting to get to know you more and stuff like this, the music on a whole, and I think especially music from Jamaica, I think different types of music get put in one category and people get confused because they're not necessarily understanding what that is about. And from your side, from your take, what would you say to people that are, so intrigued with the culture now and the music?
You're talking about Jamaicans or other persons who are not used to
people here that's now being introduced to the, the culture and the music and stuff like that.
Okay. So firstly, I think that a few things need to be done from the Jamaican end in terms of the music itself and the separation. Yes, it needs to be separated. I see a lot of people throw everything under reggae, and there's reggae and there's dancehall. There's different forms of it. So that's a whole, you're going to have to bring me back for another show so we could talk about that, because that's a big thing on that side as well. But for the persons that are in the U.S. and they're listening to reggae and they're listening to dancehall, and we're seeing, I'm in the music industry, so I am seeing where persons are using dancehall to judge the entire reggae existence, in terms of what people move and say, they're bad guys or they're this or they're that and this is what they do. It's a culture, just like other persons have their culture and stuff like that as well. And it's an expression. On my show, I always tell persons, I do not judge an artist by their recording because it's art. I do it based on levels. You understand? Like I have a book that I'm going to be putting out in the future, maybe next year, and I have 5 tiers to the industry itself, or to becoming that ultimate artist itself. So for myself, I would say that I'm a tier 3 artist. I'm not at 4, I'm not at 5, I'm at 3. And I give myself that because it is that I've gone through the rungs of recording. I've attracted various audience across the world, and I've been doing it consistently. So, but to the persons who are not Jamaican or persons who are Jamaican who are in the U.S. and are judging the culture based on what they may see from dancehall, just know that it's an expression. It's art. It's what it is that we do. Let
me ask you, you think the Grammys have to blame a little bit because people only see one category, and that they include both the dancehall music and the reggae music in one category. You think that's fair?
It's not fair, but again, that's why I said you have to bring back for another show, because what happens is that all the other industries have to understand that we are foreign. So they will have like pop and all the other that are here. So they're looking at those categories first and saying, well, persons who are outstanding within those categories are taking a note and say, we want our genre within there. And they are writing proposals. And there are certain documents that go through every year that you send to the Grammy. You have an opportunity to voice your opinion on that. And that's where I'm saying, well, we have to have a conversation about that, because Jamaica is not doing that. There's nobody doing that, right? And it goes right back to Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was seeing things that Jamaicans were not doing, but he would like to introduce it to the U.S. and to get through that barrier. But there were only so many persons that were also standing behind him. It's a similar thing with the Grammys. And people are saying, well, it's just an award show and it's just this, that, or whatever. No, it's something that's definitive of your work. You do not have to be a part of it, but at the end of the day, there are proposals that there's a period of proposal where you can propose something to the Grammys and says like, listen, reggae and dancehall are two different categories and they should not be within the same category. You understand? Right. So it may be myself that's going to write a proposal because I do spoken word. And I can also do dancehall. And I do have those albums that I'm still planning to release in the future. Right. And when I get to that point, yes, I may be the first person to say, listen, I want to enter in this category, but I don't think it's fair or exactly the difference within the music. There's a difference between reggae and there's a difference between dancehall, and there should be two categories.
So, here we go.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Every young person carries a story of hope, of struggle, of dreams waiting to rise. But in too many underserved communities, those stories go unheard.
At ease, think everyone has a story. We believe every voice deserves a chance through mentorship, empowering programs and storytelling workshops. We help youth discover their purpose, strengthen their mindset, and build a future they can be proud of.
From classrooms in Jamaica to communities across Southwest Florida,
ES is changing lives,
one story at a time.
But we can't do it alone. Join us, become a mentor, volunteer, donate, help us fuel the next generation of leaders, creators, and change makers.
Visit ahazink.org today, because when you help a young person share their story, you help them change their world.
You're stumped. Here we go.
Selma was not a beginning. Washington was not an end. So you could run. We whispered through the cornfields, our backs bowed, but our spirits unbroken. When freedom was a whisper, we learned to shout with our silence. In Washington, we stood before Lincoln's shadow, the marble cold beneath our hopes. He dreamed aloud, and in that thunderous dream, we saw chains begin to crack loud.
Stop it. Okay. You guys definitely got to go check that out. You're hearing pieces of negritude, and we here with the beautiful Dr. Empress Rose that's going to tell us what inspired her to do this piece. What was going through your mind when you first started putting pen on paper to kind of dissect what this looks like?
So first I must tell you, I do not write my recordings. I play the beat and I freestyle.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's the hardest thing for me as accustomed to writing poetry, to actually freestyle and go back to write. Because then I have to make sure like I hear everything and every word to write it down. So that's one of the first things. When I do spoken word, I do not write. I just freestyle to the beat and then I go back and I write, which is harder for me. Well, let me tell you what inspired this. So apparently, our audience as well, I am a multi-award winning filmmaker. I won over 240 awards alone in film thus far. I only started in 2020. But that's where I'm at, to over 240 awards for the, various films that I produced. So for the past 4 years, I've produced Africa Day films. Africa Day, started by Kwame Nkrumah out of Ghana back in his time, where it is that he believed that Africa could do it, by themselves. They did not need outside forces. And he brought together various countries at least once per year, where they would talk about the development in each country and how it is that they would do this on their own. And so this year's Africa Day film was based on repatriation, and repatriation for Africans and Africans within the diaspora. And so the very last track on this EP album is Freedom Fighters. That was one of the soundtracks for my film. So I actually write my own soundtracks too. I want to keep the money in one place. So I wrote my own soundtrack, recorded my own soundtrack that I used for the film, Freedom Fighters. So Freedom Fighters is coming from the Africa Day film. So being in that, mode in terms of repatriation and stuff like that, that's one of the things that initiated, the direction that I would go with the album as well. And with that, and see, even some of the Americans fighting with Africans back and forth and saying that they're not Africans, online and stuff like that. I was like, you know what, let me just delve into this history in terms of, and tie it to reparations as well, to the repertory film that I just did. And so that's one of the reasons that I came up with, Still We Rise, which is what you were playing from as well, Selma. So in the evocative, I should say, spoken word poem, I reflected on the long, unbroken line of Black resistance and the defiance and the empowerment, tracing the roots of, I would say, the civil rights movement back to the ancestral struggles and the deeply embedded spirit of survival that transcend over time. So what I did, I focused on Selma March and the Washington marches as well within the piece. And it's one of the top tracks that people are listening to on the album. Kudos to the U.S. who are running up the stream on that one as well.
That's awesome. A lot of people are, curious with a lot of things that's starting to unfold in Africa. And if I was to name 3 Africa countries right now, could you tell me which one you think is the number one country in Africa? So we got Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, Morocco, South Africa. Which one you think is the number one country?
Out of the countries you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Did you say South Africa?
Yeah.
So, well, when you say number one, in terms of what? Like, in terms of, like, how close they are to getting rid of Western?
So based on, like, the GDP, right? Like that, based on GDP.
Well, I wouldn't do it just on GDP because they inflate the numbers. It's a whole other story. They do whatever they want to make it look a certain way.
If you think they inflate the numbers, which country you think they would give it to?
Well, this is what I think. I do believe in terms of show and getting away from the Western world and being able to stand on their own. Believe it or not, they're having a lot of fighting, that stuff that's going on right now within their own. But I would say South Africa. South Africa has been, doing things to move forward. I wouldn't necessarily give it to Egypt or Algeria, because those countries, there are persons within the countries that are still very racist and don't like Black people.
Well, I can tell you this, you're right. So they did rank South Africa as number one. So this is good. We just wanted to test your knowledge a little bit there, so that's beautiful.
Yes.
And for me, without even looking at the GDP, I would say South Africa as well, because that was one of my first countries I visited in Africa, and I was really impressed with even the infrastructure that's there.
Yes. Yes.
So it's, people see one thing on TV, but you have to go there to understand that's not the case.
Yes, that's true. The media will show you what they want to show you. You have to be there. I always tell persons as well. Like, I've been to every country in Africa except Senegal and Zambia. Those are the only 2 countries I haven't been. And this year, I probably will be visiting one of those countries as well. But unless you go to Africa and see for yourself on the ground what's happening, don't believe what you see on TV. These people make you think that no, just go. Yeah. And it's
This is good.
And it's
Now,
from Jamaica as well.
Mhm.
There are places that looks exactly like Jamaica.
Oh, definitely. I can agree with that as someone that travel a lot. And as my listeners are listening to you, I know that they realize that you're a traveler. You've traveled to a lot of different places.
Mhm.
But people get excited for the cooking from the Jamaica culture. What can you speak on that? Are you a good cook?
Oh yeah. And guess what? I do not eat out. So I am this person that I don't okay, so when I travel to Africa, I actually prefer to stay in places where I can cook for myself because I don't eat out.
Okay.
I don't eat out. And I only eat from the ground.
Nice.
So if there's are wondering about this nice complexion, I eat from the ground.
The rich skin, I love it.
Yeah, I only eat from the ground. I don't eat processed food. And it's just me from a very young age. I tell persons that I'm a born Rastafarian because I don't eat meat from birth.
Yeah.
I don't eat milk. I just eat directly from the ground. It has to be yam and potato, banana.
Mad, I love it. Yeah, my great grandma was like that. So listen, I understand the steps. There, people always hear about this one, and I don't even know what to describe it as an Africa food. People always talk about this fufu.
Fufu.
Did anyone ever teach you how to make it, and have you ever tried it?
Yes, actually. And there are different kind of fufus as well, because like in Kenya, their fufu is made mostly of corn. And like on Nigeria, it's, a different mixture, whatever. Have I eaten it? I've eaten it. I prefer the Kenyan fufu because it's leading more towards, the ground with the corn and stuff like that. I can't have too much of it because my hips will respond. So. Yeah. My hips will respond.
What do you mean your hips will respond?
Okay. So there are certain foods, like, as you get into the food thing or whatever it is, like, if you don't know how to maintain eating that food, it will make your hips wider. So, yeah.
Okay. Wider.
Mm-hmm.
We learning something today here, people. This is beautiful. I like that little gem that you dropped there.
Yeah.
I'm quite intrigued. And so there was a time, right, when I was fascinated with the life of this wonderful woman. I won't say her name, and I'm sure you will figure it out once I'm trying to say certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But she was very motivating as the poet that she was, and she did a piece that kind of include bird in a cage and stuff like that. And you did a piece, you have a piece on your album that kind of highlight her work a little bit.
Are you talking about Sylvie Rice? You're talking about Maya Angelou?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's Sylvie Rice.
For people, and I think, there was a time when there's a mass of people that kind of got familiar with her work and what that looked like. But outside of that, outside of her, there was this other side that people were unfolding as well that they couldn't quite understand. And, maybe we can have you speak on that a little bit, was her love life. She couldn't seem to get it down to where, like, okay, she loves, but it's like she would never get that back in return the way she was hoping. What can you speak on that?
I am not the one to speak on love, I tell you.
Just giving your view on, because a lot of times people get caught up in a lot of the different things when they're like, someone can be so talented.
Uh-huh.
but on the home front, there'd be so much challenges. And
Well, here's what I think. One of the basic things, like even when you talk about love, is that we have this belief where our parents and other persons have inbred in us to say, like, this is the way it should be. And my philosophy, first of all, is that it's bullshit. Can I say that on your show?
well, you already said it, so.
Right? So I think like this thing, and trust me, I may go viral for saying this. Yeah, listen. I think that this thing where people have this marriage thing, and you're supposed to be married to one person, and that makes you whole. No, it's not. Everybody's not built for marriage. That's the first thing.
Right.
Everybody's not built for marriage. And then there are persons that can love more than one person, which means that you will not be in a relationship with just one person. You can be in a relationship with 5, 6 persons. But who are we to say that can't happen? Because the white man decide that this is the way it should go. That's not historically, that's not what it is. And it's not just about historically, but it's about my own point of view that.
Okay, so you took it there. I'm glad you kind of took it there. So we're going to dabble in it with just a small tit.
Okay.
Who you think, and just who you think can handle it better? A woman with 5 guys or a man with 5 women?
A woman with 5 guys.
What?
Yes. 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 Because a woman can play that game that you can't play. You think you can, but a woman can play that game so much better.
Wow. I know all the guys are like, all the guys that fell out just now. What?
For real. It's the truth.
You know, I'm not even going to touch on that other piece that I was going to say. But
We'll touch on that piece.
I could see that because women are more crafty in how they disguise and things. So I get that. I'm going to leave that right there. Remember, we said we're just going to touch on that just a tad little bit.
Yeah.
So you have a tour coming up. What does that look like? What is the conditioning on the preparation look like for when you have a tour? And before you talk about that, what's the tour that you have coming up? Okay.
So every year, I've been going to Africa for the past 9 years, and I have my own conference. The conference is based on the CCI, the Cultural Creative Industry.
Thanks for tuning in and downloading this episode of Stories to Create. We appreciate you being part of this growing community of storytellers and listeners. If today's conversation inspired you, please share the show with friends, family, or anyone who could use a little motivation in their journey. A special thank you to our sponsors, EHAS Organization, Cornell Bunting LLC, and Nostril Cheese Chase for supporting the mission and making this podcast possible. To learn more about our work, upcoming projects, and how you can get involved, be sure to visit www.hissinkorg and www.cornellbunting.com. Until next time, keep creating, keep growing, and remember, your story has power.